Can you imagine being a child removed from your home because your parents couldn't take care of you, because of abuse and neglect? No child deserves to be in that situation, yet 63 children in Palm Beach County each month are taken from their homes and placed into the foster care system. Today, we get to meet with a local nonprofit group that is helping to give hope to these children. Place of Hope is a state-licensed child welfare organization providing family-style residential care with healing opportunities for children who have been abused and neglected throughout our community. The 10-acre gated campus is one of the largest facilities in the state of Florida, and it is named for Marla and Bud Paxson, who contributed the seed money to buy the land in 2001. At Place of Hope, children and teens live in newly constructed homes with full-time cottage parents, and they are separated by gender. These homes create a family bond like none they've ever experienced before. In addition to daily routines, they spend quality time going to the beach and taking trips, escaping, even if only for a while, dreaming of the endless possibilities for their future. More than half of the foster child population are siblings who are often separated, furthering their trauma. Place of Hope is one of the few facilities in the state well-equipped to keep these siblings together. I'm Debra and I'm here today with Charles Bender, Executive Director for Place of Hope. Thank you, Charles, so much for being here. It's been a while since we've been able to see each other.
It sure has. We're glad you're back.
Yeah, I think it was about 8 years ago that we did a story on Place of Hope. A lot has changed.
Yeah, we've seen that play on TV so many times. We're so thankful for the coverage.
Well, we're glad to be back. I know we have a lot to talk about. But statistics, they don't lie. And when I read the statistics, I thought, well, I have to come back and see you because things have changed, but still have a lot of work to do. Fewer than 50% of Florida's foster care kids graduate from high school. 30% are more likely to be substance abusers. 25% of former foster care kids will be homeless within 1 year of leaving the system. And 1 in 4 boys and 1 in 10 girls end up in prison. It shocks me to hear this because I know with the economy and everything that's happening in our world, things are not getting better. So we really are so concerned for the children, and I know you've done so much at Place of Hope. Tell us what you're doing to change the numbers, to change those statistics.
The statistics you say they're tragic, and they're mirrored throughout the nation as they are right here in Palm Beach County. I mean, we have kids that are growing up who have been removed from their families. So we as a society have a responsibility to not just care for them for a period of time, we have to care for them and grow them, help them grow up to be responsible young adults. And so that's really the core goal that we're after at Place of Hope. We don't know how long we're going to have these kids in our care, but we treat every day as an opportunity to sow into them so that they can have success, whether they're with us long term or short term. We want to instill in them what a family would normally do so they can have some bit of a foundation when they leave here.
So you started in 2001. How many children would you say have been with you through the years?
After this past year, we did some research and back through, and we found that we've served 5,000 children and families in the child welfare system since we opened. So
That's incredible. That really is. Let's begin with the cottages because there's so much to talk about. Let's talk about the model of the cottage family, which really allows for the children to feel what it's like to live in a home with siblings and parents.
Our family cottages are really unique. Basically, kids that are in the foster care system, they've been removed by the state of Florida for abandonment, neglect, abuse, and endangerment. And so the idea is that in a certain period of time, they're going to be able to go home, and if they can't, the state's going to move through the judiciary to terminate parental rights, which makes kids adoptable. And hopefully then they get adopted into a forever family. But during that time in between, they have to be placed somewhere. And what we found is that a lot of kids bounce around the traditional foster care system. And this is everywhere, not just here. And for a lot of reasons, behavioral issues, people aren't trained appropriately to care for a child that's been through this kind of horrific abuse and things in their lives. And they have tremendous therapeutic needs sometimes. And so a lot of those kids, after bouncing around the system, kind of look at it and say, okay, what can we do with them differently? And that's really how we birthed our family cottage model here. We now take up to 36 kids in that longer term family cottage model. But all these kids have bounced around foster care. And there was a need for that back then in 2001 when we opened for our first little girl and the sibling groups that came with her. But the same need exists to this day. You have the kids who simply aren't going to make it in traditional foster care, and they need a higher level of care. And that's what this campus and our family cottage is.
So you have kids from all over the county that come to you. And how does this happen? Say I'm a child, my mother and father are not able to take care of me. How do I come to you? What is the process like?
Yeah, and I got to tell you, in Florida, it's not an easy thing to end up in foster care. I mean, there are a lot of kids in environments right now where the state is sort of on the outside looking in, saying, okay, there's something going on here that's probably not quite right, but we're going to do our best to try to bring services into the family to keep that family intact. It's only when it reaches its high point, if you will, however that is defined, where there's endangerment and there's clear abuse taking place, that they need to remove kids, at least temporarily, until they can figure out how to get the family back on track, maybe make some other changes. A lot of times we'll have a single mom or dad that need to go through drug rehab and so forth. And the goal by the state of Florida is to almost always, is to get their kids back to them. But so there's a lot that's going on. But in the meantime, we need to take care of those kids. We need to make sure that they're not on hold in their lives.
And imagine, you're a child, you're scared, you're thinking this is all your fault, you have no idea why you're being taken from your house, and then you're put somewhere else, even though it's pretty and feels safe. You still have a lot of psychological things going on. Do you have psychological assistance for the children for they're in therapy?
Through community-based care, which is what the state of Florida has basically privatized in the about 9 years ago. They privatized the system. So there's a lead agency in our community now called ChildNet. And what they do is they take and they place the kids through different providers. We happen to be their largest residential provider in the county now, after just 11 years since we started. But they look at us and they say, okay, this particular child or children need a certain level of care. When they come to this campus, or one of our other programs for that matter, it's somewhat strategic on behalf of the state and their partners and ChildNet to say, okay, we know that, for instance, Johnny really needs this level of care, and that kind of comes with all of those things. It comes with therapy, it comes with additional case management, It comes with, here at Place of Hope, it comes with a family-based approach. And that's where we're looking at kids and saying, okay, while they're in this system, however long the judiciary makes that determination in the state, we need to be proactive in their lives. And so that counts for everything.
Right.
Living in a family environment, having chores, being involved in after school programs, playing sports, having a normal upbringing for as long as they're with us.
What I think about often is when the child's with you, let's say for 2 years, and then they have to leave, and then that adjustment of going back, how they finally got used to that feeling of safety, and then in some ways it feels like the rug was kind of pulled out from underneath them again. What do you do to help them go back home? Because I would think that's, as much as they want to go home, they don't know what home looks like anymore.
That's a great question. It's an interesting scenario. we always want to remind kids that biological family is their biological family, and kids intrinsically, inherently just know. Most of them really, really do want to be back with family. And so it's a process over time to work them back toward that. And of course the judiciary is involved with that, and case managers and others.
And do they visit, do the families, if their parents are not in prison or in rehab, do they come and see the children in this environment, or do the children go and meet with them?
It's case by case. It really depends on really the egregious level of the case, of how they got here and so forth. But there's definitely visitation, sometimes on campus, sometimes at other locations. Sometimes they're monitored by case managers and others. And then it's just a period of time till, if there is going to be a family reunification successfully, that they start to visit actually on their own, and they'll go for the weekend.
Which is great. So it's kind of like letting go slowly, so
gradually. And then we're also trying to teach the kids about themselves. And sometimes in life you can't control the things around you. And so how do you respond to it? Right. I think we all need to learn those lessons in life, right? How do you respond to the things in life you can't control?
And they learn core values here that they can take with them for their life. I saw in the bathroom here, as we're in one of the cottages now, all the little chores that the kids do, and I thought, you know what, my son's 25, he's still calling me, asking me, how do I clean this bathroom, Mom? I'm thinking, should have really probably taught you that when you were younger. But for the children to be able to go on with their lives and learn those values that they can take with them throughout their life is really wonderful. I think that's wonderful.
And there's pride in learning and there's pride in ownership, which is why we have such nice places for the kids to live as well. They need to know that they have value.
Right, and now the homes are separated by gender. So there's 6 girls in each cottage here, and 6 boys, and so you have what, 6? You have 6 cottages actually, right? So that's wonderful.
This campus also houses an 8-bed emergency shelter for boys, which is a little bit different, but it's on the same campus.
Let's talk a little bit about that. That's for the child who's in complete danger, has to be taken and put somewhere.
That's right.
And how does that work?
A lot of times when there's an endangerment situation and somebody calls the abuse hotline in Florida, whether it be a teacher or a neighbor, and an investigation is taking place and the sheriff's department goes out, they determine, the state, that these investigators, that there's endangerment, we need to remove this child. That child's removed, okay, there's an immediate court case plan, the following day, but a lot of times they don't really know hardly anything about this young man. And so what do we do? Well, they attempt to find family members. They attempt to find a traditional foster family out in the community. And when they can't, children need to come into short-term shelters. And so what we did in that, similar to when we opened our family cottage, we said, okay, children shouldn't be raised in emergency shelters, but just like for the rest of us during hurricanes and so forth, sometimes they're necessary. And so we said, when they are necessary for up to 8 boys on any given day, we need to have the most family-like place for the children to be for that 30 or 60 days.
And in the midst of that turmoil, there has to be something that seems consistent and normal. Having a meal, having someone say, "Are you hungry?" I mean, just the basic needs that you need, and feeling like someone is watching over you.
And having staff and family members and others around them that genuinely care about them, so that they know and feel that.
Let's talk about staff, because that, to me, to think of these parents who are kind of like staff, who are taking care of the children in the cottages, how do you find these wonderful people to come, and how much time do they give up? How does that all work? Because I often wonder, we all should be doing this for a year or 2 of our lives. It's just such a wonderful thing. Tell us about that a little bit.
It is a tremendous sacrifice. It's nothing that I myself could do. So they're really our heroes on this campus. We have 6 sets of those cottage parents, and then we have relief cottage parents in each of our homes too, because they get a little time off here and there. And so they really are the backbone of our system of care here on this campus. And that's really it. We're not trying to replace family, we're trying to emulate healthy family. And you can imagine moving in, you have 6 kids that are, some are related, some aren't related, but they're certainly not related to you as the cottage parent. And so that's a tough job. And so we try to support them in every way possible, give them a great environment and platform to do the work that they do. But boy, it's not easy to find people who are really cut for it.
No, I mean, it's not easy for parents to take care of their own children, but to take care of someone else's child is just such a blessing, really, to be able to do that as a gift.
And some have their biological children with them here as well. So
that's beautiful.
It's extra.
Now, let's talk about the siblings, because that to me is, I have a boy and a girl. God forbid something happened. One would be in one cottage, one would be in the other.
Right.
How is that kind of hard for them? How do they have quality time?
It's actually spectacular, because most foster care systems around the nation, these kids are brought into a system of care which is already traumatic. Okay, you're already removed from your family, and then you're separated from your siblings. And in a county like Palm Beach, where the land size of Palm Beach County is, I think, the largest county east of the Mississippi. And so you could literally have one child placed in South County and one placed in North, and they're not really going to interact very much. So although we do separate by the gender, you might have a sister living right across the street. And it's just the nature of this campus. When you pop up here at, say, 4 o'clock, anywhere from about 2 on till about 4:30, kids are coming home, they're getting their bikes, and they're out in the neighborhood. It's their neighborhood, nobody else's, and they're interacting with their siblings. And we do a lot of after-school activities and sports and so forth, and weekends.
Right, so they kind of return to normal life. They go to school, they're doing after-school activities, they get to see their siblings. How long does the average child stay here? I kind of feel like I want them to stay here. So for me, I want them to stay here, grow up, and then, transition in one of your housing, and then go on with their life. My fear is them going back home, which I know is the goal. So I guess you have to reassure me that that's
Well, we always
a good
have
goal.
to believe that anyone can be rehabilitated if they want to. And so we do see some really successful reunifications with family. And like I said, inherently, kids do want to be with family. And so, that's a process. But we don't really know how long they're going to be here with us. The goal is to take children, when they come into the system, to have their case, for lack of a better term, figured out within 12 months. And so they're going to be through judicial action, they're going to be home with the family, or they're going to terminate parental rights, which makes them legally adoptable. And then from there, it's going to follow that we're going to be out there looking for a family, because you want them in that forever family at some point. But for those kids that can't happen, I'd like to say we're the second best option. We're the opportunity for kids, because when we built this place, it was specific for those kids. We don't know how long they're going to be here, but if you do need long-term care, we're here for that. And when you're here long-term, you're going to be raised in the most normal-like family setting you could possibly
And
experience.
at a certain age, you're almost, it's more likely that you're not adoptable. I mean, is that still true today?
Statistically, it is true, but I will tell you that we've shattered those statistics too. And we've had large sibling groups adopted. We've had 15 to 17-year-olds adopted, and it just doesn't typically happen, but it does sometimes. And there's some great people in the community that just want to love and take care of great kids, you know.
Well, the cottages are just one part of what you're doing. There's so much more that you're doing. I just don't know how you're handling all of this. I mean, you have been really looked to as the go-to place for children who are in need. You have, in foster care, I think it was 1 out of every 2 children, girls, end up being pregnant by the time that they're 19 years old. And that is, to me, incredible. That's an incredible statistic. So tell me about what Joanne's Cottage does, how you handle these children who are in foster care, who are pregnant. Tell us about that a little bit.
I learned a long time back that in Palm Beach County, as far as children in the dependency system, which is otherwise known as foster care for a lot of people, there's a lot of girls that are in the system who end up, prior to being 18, they could be 11, 12, 15, 17, end up pregnant. And prior to us opening up Joanne's Cottage, there was only 1 bed for a girl in the dependency system under 18 who ended up pregnant. And so we saw this as a need, and the system approached us and asked if we would help. And so because of our supporters, and we opened up our Joanne's Cottage, and it can take up to 10 young ladies who are pregnant. What's really interesting about it is this is the first time in Place Hope's history where we actually take non-dependency girls in as well, just girls in the community, young ladies who are in the school system who end up pregnant, and families say, you need to find a place to live.
I was following a bus the other day, and some young girls got off the bus, and I would say 8 out of 10 girls had a baby in their hand. And they were children. I mean, they were children themselves, holding children. And I was looking at that, and I was thinking, where are these kids coming from, and where are they going? It was just, where do you go when you have a baby and you're under 19 years old?
Really tough.
It's incredible.
It's estimated right now, I've been told, that there's as many as 350 girls in the school system in Palm Beach County alone who are pregnant. Now, not all those girls have to leave their families and so forth, but even if you took the 10% rule and you said, 35 of those girls at any point in time need a place to live.
Let's talk a little bit about a subject that no one wants to talk about, Hope House, Florida, for the young girls who are sexually abused and used for sex trafficking right here in our backyards. Let's talk a little bit about that.
It's tragic. Florida is ranked 3rd in the nation for domestic minor sex trafficking victims. So that means they're under 18. I'm not talking about the 23 and 24-year-olds. That's a whole nother tragic issue. But for girls who are under 18 who have been lured into or otherwise brought into the sex trafficking world, we're ranked 3rd in the nation, and South Florida is part of the hub of that.
I mean, that's a whole story in itself. It's just incredible to me. How old are these children? How old are these girls? Give me an age range.
They can be anywhere from 11 to 18.
You said the location of this wonderful facility is not known, and the reason for that is?
What we're trying to do is plant seeds into these young ladies' lives to, again, show them that they have self-worth and that they can become something in life. And so we really want to try to take them out of the world that they were in and sort of bring them into a whole new way of living. And we just do a lot of focusing in on them and who they are and building up their self-esteem and helping them see that there is hope for the future.
Let's talk about the future. What are your challenges for the future? I mean, you're now asked from the state to do even more work. You were telling me about a project that's happening in Boca Raton right now. Let's talk a little bit about some of your challenges for the future.
And challenges are always awareness. This is a great opportunity for us to be here with you to do this, because I don't think the average person out there knows the plight of the child who enters the foster care system. I think there's this idea that, well, we have this safety net, right? The state is out there and there's a thing called foster care, but what we don't realize is what these kids are navigating on a daily basis, what they go through, and how long they're in this system. and how that system needs to be a quality of care system if we're ever going to address those core statistics that you mentioned about kids aging out of the system at 18 with relatively no skill sets. What do we do with those kids? Well, it starts way back when they come in. We have to have quality care. So, always a challenge for us is raising the finances to keep, moving forward and taking in more children and taking care of the ones that we have. But the other is finding quality foster families out in the community to take some of these children in. Babies all the way through 17
Incredible.
and a half.
And transitional housing for the kids that are aging out. To me, the most incredible thing is that you age out of foster care and you could still be in high school. I cannot fathom that. I don't understand
The very
it.
reason we started Villages of Hope, I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but one of the core reasons is these kids are so far behind, so many of them, and it's directly related to them bouncing around foster care. And this is a national issue. And so what do you do now when you've finally got them somewhat stabilized? They're focusing in on school, people are helping them, mentors and tutors and everything else. They're doing well, and all of a sudden you're going to turn 18 and you're in 10th grade.
Incredible.
What are your options? And so you need transitional housing, you need support, you need oversight, and that's what we do at Villages of Hope, and part of what we're hoping to take down to Boca Raton with us as well.
Right, and you have Kids Sanctuary, which we'd love to talk about with Connie Franchino. So you obviously are faced with many challenges, but your success rate of what you're doing is just wonderful. And we got to meet with Mike Van Soest, who was a former resident here. He came when he was 12 years old to you at Place of Hope, and I had an opportunity to speak with him the other day. I would like you to hear what he had to say. Let's talk about that first day when you came to Place of Hope. What happened prior to that led you to come here?
Prior to Place of Hope, me and my family basically just struggled with a lot of different things. My mom and my dad struggled with a lot of different addictions, and just really couldn't get their grips on what was truly
What was normal,
importance.
I guess.
Yeah.
Right? Do you have siblings, a brother or sister?
I do. They're all a lot older than me. 18 years, I think, is the youngest between.
Wow, so like different families, really.
Yeah, basically.
So you were 12 years old, you were basically alone and scared, and then you came into this loving environment. And how did it affect your life? How did it change your life?
Really affected my life by giving me a whole load of examples to base what I would want my family to be off of. Things that I would want to do with my family, sitting down at dinner and discussing the day, and
Structure that you didn't have.
Consistency.
Right.
Yeah.
And that feeling that you were safe, that the bottom wasn't going to fall out from underneath you at any moment with the chaos and the craziness of the drinking and the drugging.
Yeah.
And just never knowing when they were going to kind of go off a little, huh?
Yeah, it really was just a safe place that I knew, the love and the care wasn't based off of the things I did. It was based off of me being an individual that needed someone to care for me.
Right, that you deserved as a child to be cared for. So that was wonderful. And time has gone on. You were here at 12. How long did you stay here?
I stayed here till I was 18.
Right.
And I moved out and lived for my remaining 3 or 4 months of high school with basically just a friend of mine and his dad. They kind of took me in until I went to school in August up in Virginia.
And now you're in school and working, and you're how old now?
I'm 22.
22.
And I'm wrapping up my last semester, and I'm already in the job I always kind of wanted.
Which is?
I'm working full-time at Christ Fellowship, just working with youth, and heavily involved in music, and
Beautiful.
yeah.
Such a wonderful young man. You must be so proud that he was here with you at Place of Hope, in this very house, actually.
Mike's a spectacular young man. He's a leader. He's going to go great places in his life.
And do you think he'll come back and maybe work with you here at Place of Hope?
I'd love to have Mike on the staff here one day, and for him to be able to sow into other kids' lives through his experience. One of the things Mike and I joke about is how when he was here, he didn't like doing the chores and he didn't like all the rules and all that normal families have. But now that he's a little bit older and a little more wise, he'll be the first to tell you that he gets it now, and he's thankful for it as well. So I think he has a lot to offer.
Charles, thank you so much for being with us here today. Place of Hope is changing the lives of children one child at a time. So thank you for being with us and for making a difference in our community.
Thank you so much.
I'm Debra Tornabin. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed our show. We look forward to seeing you next time on WXCL, your PBS station.